morning. It's morning in Japan anyway, and that means that I've just done my dream diary. Before my ablutions, after the obscurity of sleep, in that little fishing moment when you can catch a dream by the tail, there's a moment just as soon as you wake up that if you train yourself, you can sort of say, what did I just dream? And it's very present and real to you. And at various points in my life I've kept dream diaries, and I've usually stopped. I've started them because it's fascinating to know that your mind is creating films every night with elaborate plots and dialogue and colour and tracking shots and movement and, with the whole lexicon of filmmaking, but also you forget them and you stop noting them because in a sense they're repetitive and revealing, perhaps too revealing, and they're kind of boring to other people. It's very difficult to make your dreams interesting to other people because you remember the atmospheres and things. It's very difficult to capture them in words. So I've just been making this month, for February, last month now, been making a dream diary, just scribbling a few notes, typing a few notes when I wake up of what I dreamed about. So I'm just going to go through these notes. I'm going to disguise people's names because obviously it's embarrassing if I tell you which friends I'm dreaming about, this kind of thing. I'm going to work backwards. So last night, a very pungent dream last night. A certain friend of mine, who I know from Berlin, was part of a group of artists mounting an elaborate ritual performance in a live-in gallery, possibly in Prague. 2 galleries, 2 rooms with circular wooden floors, a grand piano, a double bed with colourful blankets, various installations. At first I worry that my friend is trying to drag me into an occult ritual. This seems to be a recurrent theme, that there's something demonic close to me and I'm scared of getting tangled up with it. Other artists, and I mentioned a couple of Berlin female artists, are involved, and when I realize it's an artwork in Documenta, so this is anticipating my visits to various art fairs later in the year and art exhibitions, I'm relieved. So I think it's a real occult ritual, and then I realize it's just an artwork for Documenta. Documenta is like a stamp of sanctity, but also sanity, and that it's clean, saint, sauf saint. So I'm relieved, and then I'm dismayed because I get wet. This friend of mine gets naked and wettens some of my clothes, and then he wettens the bed I'm supposed to sleep in. And I'm being whipped. There's some sort of ritual whipping going on, and I'm catching the tongue of the whip. Oh, for fuck's sake, I say, I don't want to be involved and I don't want to spend the night wet. So I don't know what that dream was all about last night. It was an anticipation of going to Documenta, and perhaps also a kind of anxiety about the occult leanings of some of my friends. Tuesday, 2 nights ago, I was living in a boarding house in a war zone, something like Beirut, with a bunch of easygoing female students. This is a very recurrent kind of setting for my dreams. They're often set in university halls of residence. I think I'm essentially a student in my own mind, an eternal student. But also I like being in these places which are kind of communal living, like student halls of residence, and which are kind of intellectual bohemian, even sort of monastic in some way, quite stripped down and poor, but also full of drama and connection. And there's often sometimes a voyeuristic element that I'm in with hot girls living in an apartment or something. So one night these girls that I'm living with have a party on the roof. We're in a war zone, remember? We're in a student hall of residence in a war zone. They're having a party on the roof in the moonlight, and I'm mingling with them. And I go to a cordon or a barrier and I try to get into a restricted area. I get thrown out. Before that, it's a recurrent anxiety dream. In my room, surrounded by my clutter, I suddenly have to move, and I'm not sure I'll be able to gather everything together in time. But at the back of my mind, there's the idea that what remains behind could just go into my storage. that is a very significant recurring anxiety dream I have, that I don't have time to move out of a place I have to move out of. And there's always an extra room full of clutter, which I've forgotten about. So just as I've packed up a car or something, and I'm about to leave, there's one more room which is full of my stuff, which I absolutely can't lose and can't leave. I think that's something to do with death, that dream. I think it's about the idea of getting one's affairs in order for death. Talking of death, I've been having these recurrent dreams recently about David Bowie on his deathbed, or a terminal David Bowie, who knows he has very little time left to live. And so here's one, Monday. Bowie was on his deathbed, and a small number of us were spending his last hours with him. This was an amazingly vivid dream. At the same time, some sort of royal coronation is going on in the castle we're all in. Bowie seems young, but he's agonizing. Prophecy said a wild dog would attack him just before he died. So he's a Christ-like figure in this dream. There's a prophecy about his death, you know. So I'm keeping him company, and my brother arrives, and the dog is running along a long avenue towards us. So this was the very last moments of his life. The dog itself has appeared. And we look up at the sky, and something like Aslan is moving in the sky. There's some sort of divine presence, but it's Aslan from the Narnia stories. Aslan is on the move, and then suddenly there's a huge purple planet taking up the whole of the night sky and rotating slowly. And this is very vivid. I remember it very clearly. There are kind of stars on the surface of this huge planet. It's like a moon which has come really close to the Earth, but you can also see stars and you can see craters. I throw open the glass of the window in front of us to see it better, and to my horror, Bowie throws himself out, and very high up. He falls for a few seconds, hits the ground, gets up and walks away. So he's immortal. This death has simply been his mortal flesh. And somehow there's resounding this phrase, seedbed. It's a bit like Rosebud in Citizen Kane. Seedbed. Seedbed is Vito Acconci's artwork in which he's masturbating under the floor of the gallery in the 1970s, I think 72. Seedbed, how weird. And it seems that my brother and I are supposed to follow suit. We're supposed to jump out of this window, die, hit the ground, and then rise up and live immortally. But it's very hard to throw yourself out to what seems like certain death. So my brother does it first, and he hits the ground and doesn't get up. He just lies there. He's not immortal. And so I don't know what to do. I'm thrown into a great quandary. Should I jump knowing that it might be certain death? It's a bit like what I wrote when Bowie actually did die. Was I felt some obscure need to be like a Hindu wife and commit, I think it's called putti, where you throw yourself onto the grave of the warrior because your life is worth nothing now that your husband or hero, whatever, has gone. So I woke up, that tension, that conflict of not knowing what to do, whether to jump or not to jump. There is a Bowie song called Jump also, which is allegedly about his brother, schizophrenic brother Terry. Jump, they say. So I'm Terry, I guess, in the dream. I don't know whether to jump or not. Terry did jump in front of a train in 1985. Sunday's dream. Can you stand the intensity of these dreams? They're so intense. A plane with a technical fault. This is another recurring trope in my dreams. I'm on a plane which can't get high enough, which is just skimming the surface of, it's like 10 feet in the air. And it's not crashing, but it's also unable to really fly. So this is probably a sense of frustration in my music career, perhaps, or my general career. Never really being able to lift off, I don't know. A plane with a technical fault which meant it had to drive along vertiginous mountain paths, terrifyingly. So it's having to be like a car. A plane which has to be a car, slave boy, a king who has to be a slave boy. A holiday in Festival Edinburgh which involved visits to art centres. One had a vertigo-inducing nave, and I used the word nave in the dream without quite knowing what it meant. Primal scream parties. I told Bobby he could always work as a fashion model. Bobby Gillespie pops up in my dreams. Various friends who tossed me free chocolate dessert, and And then somebody who's simply an online internet acquaintance who I'm no longer friends with, I told him that his humour was boring because it complied with all relevant bi-regulations. Sort of a settling of accounts with various people. Saturday, I had a nightmare. This was terrifying. I'm sleeping in a bed grouped with a double bed. So there's two beds, one of them double, one single. I'm looking at photos I've snapped earlier, and I find, and there are self-portraits of me in the bed. And in one of the pictures I see in the bed alongside me, a hideous deformed face, which I hadn't noticed at the time. And it's sort of draped, it's covered in sheets on the bed next to me, but I somehow see the face. So I look in reality into the next bed and see there are these humps, these lumps, these forms. And I start to, because I have to look to see what it is, unpleasant though I know it's going to be, start to tug back the sheets, and from the immobility and the musty smell I sense that it's a corpse, this series of humps. Can't quite get the cover off. I think of calling Hisai in from the next room, go to turn the light on, and as I'm doing so I notice that there are two draped figures in the double bed. And now they're moving and they're changing places. They've come alive, and one of them moves to my side of the bed. Horror, and I wake up. You wake up at this moment of maximum drama and tension in the dream. It's funny. Friday, I bought a little vintage digital camera with nice colours and a cassette tape memo recorder at a junk store for 50,000 yen for the two of them. 50,000 yen, that's like $500, it's a lot. And the plan was to start a retro-tinged vlog recorded to cassette tape. Well, so I'm dreaming about what I'm doing right now. This is obviously quite significant. I left the recorder playing on a crowded square with the idea to approach it while it was filming, but a suspicious thief-like character was already eyeing it after a few seconds. The dishonesty of the West. In Japan, I leave everything unlocked. I leave my bicycle unlocked, and have done for 6-7 years, and it's never been stolen. It's occasionally moved by angry shopkeepers. So yeah, dreaming about vlogging with junk store equipment. Wednesday of last week, I'm with a particular friend, taking lots of tourist trains that shuttle through Fife. I make observations on this friend's American physique, but perhaps he's turned into a different person at this point, I don't know. I show him a swimming pool on the roof, which is too chic for my liking. I don't remember this dream at all, it's already gone. Tuesday, using a dangling mannequin and a security video in a club corridor, I make a new video for Hairstyle of the Devil. I don't talk to the neo-cabaret band milling about in the background. I think it's mostly girls in this band, I seem to recall. My van parked outside unlocked is stolen during the night. So again, this sort of anxiety about property being stolen. Yeah, I think I have quite a few dreams about people stealing things from me. Monday, February 20th, I'm riding a tram through a hilly region which is Japanese and Swiss at the same time. I like this juxtaposition of cultures and of even interior and exterior which dreams tend to give you. They're always one recognizable landscape sort of collaged in with another in ways that are always interesting. I reached an airport where I'm booked into an institutional apartment right by the runways, and though I'm on my own, I'm admiring the view of passengers outside when I discover a room of Finnish Christians who show me radical new visual-only Bibles they're producing. It's like manga, the Bible in manga form, but they're Finnish. Sunday, I'm attacked and injured so that blood soaks my face and my clothes. I go to a bathroom to clean up, astonished that I too have become a victim of attacks on society's outsiders. So a political dream about the new xenophobia. First they came for the Jews, ... Also, I dreamed that an elderly and terminal David Bowie again was visiting my father, but that I was kept out of the room to respect his privacy, and he ended up renting a workroom in our family house. So, yeah, terminal David Bowie dreams. It's funny, because after he died, I didn't dream that he was dead or terminal. I was dreaming of him being alive. And I actually remember emailing my mother saying, when I dream about my father, it's always that he is dead, but he comes back as a kind of ghost or a presence who doesn't know he's dead, doesn't accept that he's dead. Whereas when I dream of David Bowie, he's not dead, he's alive still. But actually that's changed. It's amazing how people's status does change. My unconscious dreaming part of myself now does know that Bowie, if not dead, he's almost terminal in these dreams. He's sort of on his last legs. Perhaps this represents the power of that last video, Lazarus. Saturday, February 18th, continuous narrative of a whole apartment building which communicated across a sunny courtyard. Some idol worship going on. Pan across the Japanese archipelago. I experiment with clothing. Friday, February 17th. See, I can't remember that one at all. Completely gone. A sort of amusement park for Japanese women in Britain. Includes a two-way video window live relay to a high street. Also a gym featuring a very large and unstable harpsichord. A shoot. I'm vaguely noticing / ignoring the Japanese girls everywhere. Noticing, ignoring, that's a nice kind of ambiguous verb, because it is what happens to you in Japan as a foreigner. You're noticed and ignored at the same time. Thursday, February 16th, a living compartment / apartment at the very front of a speeding train. Yeah, that was very memorable. I'm often in trains in these dreams. Wednesday, here's quite a long one. I had enrolled as a mature student at Stirling University. Stirling University is a very resonant location for me. I've only really visited it a couple of times, but it's set in these hills, it's got a beautiful lake, and it's got a 70s campus university feel to it, a red brick university, a new university. It studies trendy, or then trendy subjects like media studies and film and stuff, semiotics, and so I kind of wish I'd gone to Stirling University, and whenever I go there I think, wow, this is amazing to be in this kind of aesthetic bubble up in the hills of Scotland, to be both advanced and radical and kind of rural and traditional. It's a kind of strange, almost a space station in the mountains. So I entered my flat in Stirling University to find a couple fucking in the communal sitting room. Just go ahead, I'm very easygoing about it, because it's an experimental, radical university, and they do that. And when they're cleaning up the sink, I tell them my name is Nick, but I don't know which is my room, and the girl is ugly and the boy is shy. We move to a crowded room with views over the car park and hills. Children are coming downhill in a crowd holding hands, and I'm asked why I'm a student, and I tell them I had visited friends at Stirling and liked the campus. I like the scenery here and the vitality, like those kids. Someone drew attention to a long black limo parking. I was being asked where I was from. Edinburgh. Another Edinburgh man beat me to it and said Edinburgh for himself. But I spent most of my time in Japan, 2 months travelling, the rest doing interesting things like this. And so I began to feel a bit self-conscious answering these questions. Someone was trying to open the windows to see the limo better, and I say, don't be a scary monster. An American asks where I'm from, and I joke, Elizabeth, Tennessee, which I say quickly in the manner of David Bowie in his cocaine interviews, when he comes up with some witticism, just a little bit too quickly because of the cocaine. And there's some suggestion that it's Bowie in that arriving limousine outside. Whether terminal Bowie, I don't know. Possibly young Bowie. Tuesday, February 14th, I dream that a certain person, a girl, comes to Europe, and I apologise for not writing. It would just have been more of the same, but less. No nude selfies, less emotional honesty. So we walk down some steps from which one can see the Boston skyline, inverted commas, and then go to the Edinburgh University Student Union, where a big talk about psychoanalysis and literature is beginning in a very long blue-tinted student entertainments room. I ask this friend how she's enjoying Europe, and she says she's missing some twin cities in the US, one called Palm, and I ask if that means Palm Beach. The unconscious is structured like a language, as I think Jacques Lacan said. So we sit at a corner table. I'm about to broach the issue of her current boyfriend when the lecture begins. A rather vain elderly psychoanalyst introduces his wife and mother, who live together and are actresses. His mother is the actress who plays Rhoda's mother. I've been watching Rhoda, Mary Tyler Moore production. I was watching Mary Tyler Moore, and I kind of watched all the episodes, really, that there are. And then when Mary Tyler Moore died, I felt a bit strange about watching anymore, and I switched to Rhoda. guess if Valerie Harper dies, I'm going to have to stop watching Rhoda. I should watch them all before she actually dies. Because it changes your feeling about things. You feel there's some sort of morbid feeling when these actresses die. Or rock stars. I think it's certainly changed my feeling about listening to Bowie records to know that he's dead. Sunday, February 12th, I'm walking with a green canvas bag containing camera, a big yellow Chartwell diary and laptop when some hard sell hustlers approach me. I shake them off, cross the road, they follow. I choose a gated steep street with a cafe at the bottom, but it's a mistake, it's a cul-de-sac. I walk to the top, find I have no bag anymore, and make a fuss. The hustlers pretend to sympathize, but go away to consult with each other. I find a similar bag under a table with a laptop and a camera in it, but it's not mine. It's actually worth more than mine, more valuable than mine was. So I pretend it's mine just to see the hustlers' reaction, because it might be a trap, it might be a trick. They seem unfazed. I leave, I wander around a nearby shopping centre. The hustlers work in a film processing stall. I drop in and they ask me if everything's okay, and I admit that the bag I found wasn't mine. Tell them I'm going to use Find My Mac to locate the laptop. And they say that the bag might be in the hands of a certain well-known criminal, that we could drop by his place. I thought this might be the next stage of the scam. Somebody nearby said that the place was extremely dangerous. This stream is basically one of trust. Who can you trust? And suspicion of everyone, which is part of this thing I've described in the West of everyone competing with everyone else. And I think it's very characteristic of a certain kind of Hollywood film plot in which you never know who to trust, or you see two groups of people refusing to trust each other. And it's apparently, I think there's Adam Curtis documentaries really which explain this quite well. I can't remember which ones, but the Cold War mentality of spy thrillers and things, all about not trusting the other side, and games which apparently the Rand Corporation used to play. It's life as a gaming situation where you're competing as in a game, and you have to outwit your partner by going through very elaborate layers of tricksterdom, confidence tricks, basically. And David Mamet made a very interesting film called House of Games, which takes that to its kind of logical conclusion, where just about every scene, every scenario is a setup where you kind of believe it, you go along with it until you realize it's just another scam, another level of scam, which is even more audacious than the last. And this is really, because it ties in obviously with American hucksterdom, the idea of confidence, the idea of pyramid schemes. It's a very classically American and Western and paranoid mindset, not just related to the Cold War, but also related to capitalism itself and to, Bernie Madoff pyramid schemes, and the general idea of capitalism itself as a huge confidence trick, which it is. My birthday, Saturday, February the 11th, I was organising a party, which was also a kind of performance. Most parties I go to are performances because they're my own gigs. Everyone was going to get pissed on. I was a gay man. It was a gay man thing. I wasn't a gay man. I upbraided the main actor for being too dark and scary in his improvisation. Make it more David Lynch, I said. So you're always simmering on the edge of menace, but never going over into hysteria. David Bowie showed up. David Bowie's in all of these dreams. And everyone embraced him. He was in the last stages of cancer, but looked okay. You don't like being touched, I hear, I asked, and started saying how understandable I found this, but he said he didn't mind and came over to hug me. Oh, David, don't make me cry, I said, crying, but not very much. That was very touching. And he actually, this was something he did say, please don't touch me. This is in his very, very late years, maybe 2014, there was a report that he'd been seen in a gallery or something. Some women had gone over and made a fuss of him and touched him, and he simply said, please don't touch me. Sort of thing that Thomas Jerome Newton might have said. Thursday, February the 9th. First there was a challenge and my team had to land a helicopter in the desert. Then I lived on Queensferry Street with ex-girlfriend. Starving, I made a trip to the local shop, then went out to find sandwiches. A whole team of us lived in the flat, but ex-girlfriend and I were a very close couple. There was a party to which some twins from my school had been invited, and I discovered that her girlfriend had been stalked previously by one or both of them. So I said I'd arrange for them to be uninvited. Out searching for sandwiches, I found a techno club on Princess Street and was in an article about it, which consisted almost entirely of colours. Sometimes the dreams go very abstract. I mean, this morning, actually, after the dream I noted down, I was in a very strange abstract dream, which was all about coloured circles. And it seemed to make sense of the whole world, that you could describe everything in terms of a particular arrangement of coloured circles. One saw a box of crayons. Apparently the DJ was the sort of artist, but the club was being mocked. That gets very, very weird. And here's the last one that I've noted, or the first one rather, Sunday 5th of February. In a kind of Edinburgh Newtown, some friends of mine, an American guy with a Japanese girl, had a ruse which involved the guy impersonating an old fascist fashion designer who lived downstairs from them in an apartment with shop windows. It was this American guy in disguise, but I started having an affair with her, trying to show her a very interesting little museum opposite which showed things similar to her designs. It was a party at which a magazine feature on a designer was passed around, and the feature called her ultra-conservative. I had to defend my defense of her to a table of people, had to shout to get my points across. I told them that my style was to inject a little poison into virtue. Everyone in this dream was young and elegant, rather in the manner of Guillermo, a friend of mine. That's interesting, because it's almost like I'm worried that my friends are fascists, or I'm worried that I myself have some fascist tendencies or something, and that I'm going to be attacked for them. I think a lot of people's left-wing stances are what we call this today virtue signalling. You're trying to show that you're not a fascist, you're not on the wrong side, you're on the side of light and reason, and you're bien pensant, as they say. You think well of people and things, and you think correctly as well. So that gets worked through in the dreams as well, trying to be on the right side. But obviously there is some appeal, especially aesthetically. I think there is an appeal of fascism. If you think of how many people were drawn to, especially the Mussolini type of fascism, because they'd read D'Annunzio or people like that in Italy in the 20s, whatever. I do have friends who are a little bit drawn to right-wing things, and of course David Bowie himself went through his right-wing period. And Lawrence Durrell, who I was talking about the other day, said that he described himself as right-wing, although I don't think he was. But he did come from this colonial class of people who governed India, and apparently had no qualms about the colonial situation they were in. So yeah, I don't know what these dreams say about me. I'm often a student. I'm often in a student hall of residence. I think I probably am quite isolated and lonely in Japan, and your brain is kind of making up, compensating for that, and so I'm always in this communal living situation where there's a big bunch of people, kind of like in a student apartment situation, student halls situation. It's interesting which parts are kind of compensatory, which parts are a way to actually face up to unpleasant realities, like the terminal David Bowie dream, which keeps recurring. That is quite a recent thing. I do think last year, although I knew he was dead when I was awake, when I was asleep he was still alive, but now he's on his last legs in my dreams. So perhaps in a few months, a few weeks, he'll actually be a ghost like my father. He'll have the status. The thing about my father, when I dream about him, is that I'm always telling him he's dead, and he doesn't want to believe it. So I'm kind of saying, you shouldn't be here because you're dead. You're kind of unfairly monopolizing us. Your time has passed. It's a slightly hostile relationship I have with him. It's slightly Oedipal, that I want him to just knuckle down to the fact that he's dead, but he keeps sort of coming back in his kind of late stage, because he had 15 years of being very disabled with various strokes and not being able to finish his sentences and things. So he was an awkward presence, and it was a little bit of an unpleasant obligation to take him around the shops or something, because you knew he would make a fool of himself, try to talk to people and not make sense and not be able to finish his sentences. And people were mostly very understanding. And now I was acting as if everything was fine, but of course it's a cognitive dissonance. You don't feel like your parents should be in that kind of degraded role. You know, you shouldn't be patronizing a parent, basically. So perhaps Bowie, who is a kind of artistic parent to me, will be in the same situation in a few months, or I don't know. I think it's you don't feel Oedipal about your heroes the same way you do with your parents, obviously. Psychoanalysis, eh?
Open University.